$1 million. That's what the winner would take home. But that isn't why this fight shocked robotics engineers around the world. Because somewhere during this match, something happened that wasn't supposed to happen yet. Not next year, not 5 years from now. Today. The real question isn't who won China's first robot MMA League. The real question is, what happened inside that cage that suddenly made the world's most advanced humanoid robots look far more dangerous than anyone expected? The fight was never the real event at first. It looks exactly like what everyone expected. 2 humanoid robots, 1 arena, $1 million on the line. The referee steps back. The distance closes. Then, the first punch lands. For the crowd, that's where the fight begins. For the engineers, it began long before that. Because this wasn't built as a spectacle. It was built as an experiment. For years, humanoid robots have amazed audiences with perfectly choreographed demonstrations. They danced. They even performed martial arts routines. They completed obstacle courses. But none of those demonstrations answered the one question that actually mattered. And every time, people asked the same question. But what happens when something unexpected happens? That's the question nobody could answer inside a laboratory. Because laboratories are designed to remove uncertainty. A fight does the exact opposite. Every movement from the opponent creates a completely new situation. Every missed punch changes the distance. Every blocked strike changes the timing. Every unexpected reaction forces the robot to abandon the plan it was already executing. And unlike a demonstration, there are no second attempts. The robot has to make the next decision immediately. That's why this cage became one of the most demanding environments humanoid robots have ever entered. Not because the punches were powerful, but because uncertainty cannot be programmed. It has to be survived. And within seconds, that uncertainty was already taking control. The difficult part wasn't throwing the first punch. It was what happened after the first plan stopped working. The first round answered one question. The next exchange would expose a much bigger one. The moment the plan disappeared. Watch what happens here. One robot attacks. The other steps away. The punch misses by only a few centimeters. It doesn't look important. In reality, that tiny miss changes almost everything. Before that moment, both robots still have a prediction of what comes next. After it, they don't. Humans barely notice this happening. We instinctively adjust our movement thousands of times without thinking about it. For a humanoid robot, every adjustment creates another chain of calculations. Where is the opponent now? Has the distance changed? Should I attack, defend, or retreat? All of those decisions have to be made before the next punch arrives. And there isn't time to hesitate. That's why engineers weren't looking for perfect attacks. They were watching something much harder. How quickly could the robot abandon its original plan and create a completely new one? Because that's the difference between performing a routine and surviving a fight. The moment the robot stopped following prepared movements, they started solving problems in real time. For the first time, the robot wasn't simply executing instructions anymore. It was reacting to a world that refused to stay predictable. And that's exactly what engineers have been trying to achieve for years. Not robots that never make mistakes, but robots that recover from them faster than the world around them changes. That isn't choreography anymore. It's adaptation under pressure. Landing a punch wasn't the breakthrough. Recovering after everything went wrong was. But making the next decision wasn't the hardest part. The real question was whether the robot could stay standing long enough to make it. Staying upright is harder than fighting. The next exchange looks almost ordinary. A punch lands. The robot stumbles, but somehow doesn't fall. To most people, it looks like a small recovery. To robotics engineers, this is the moment they've been waiting for. Because staying upright isn't one problem. It's dozens of problems happening at exactly the same time. The instant a punch changes the robot's balance, its original movement is already wrong. Its feet are no longer where they were supposed to be. Its center of gravity is moving. Its arms are no longer generating the forces the AI expected. And everything has to be corrected before the next hit arrives. That's what makes humanoid robots so different from industrial machines. Factory robots work in environments that never change. Inside this cage, everything changes with every single hit. And that's exactly why balance has become one of the biggest challenges in humanoid robotics. It's not about standing still. It's about staying stable while the entire world around you refuses to. Watch carefully. The robot isn't trying to throw the next punch first. It's trying not to lose control first. Watch the robot's feet. Almost every recovery begins there. Tiny adjustments. Most people never even notice them. Miss just one of them, and the fight can end instantly. Every successful recovery buys the AI something incredibly valuable. Another second. That's all it needs. Throwing a punch wasn't keeping the robot alive. Its ability to recover was. But even staying on its feet wouldn't solve the next problem, because the robot still had to decide what to do next, before the opportunity disappeared. The second everything changes. Then it happens. A clean hit. Not enough to end the fight, but enough to erase everything the robot expected would happen next. From this moment on, nothing is exactly where the robot expected it to be. Its balance has shifted. The distance has changed. The timing is different. For a split second, every calculation the robot was relying on is suddenly outdated. Humans do this instinctively. A humanoid robot has to calculate it, and that fraction of a second may already be too late. That's why robotics engineers don't judge these machines by how hard they can punch. They judge them by what happens after they get hit. Because that's the moment when preparation ends and adaptation begins. Watch what happens next. After every successful strike, the pace changes. The spacing changes. Sometimes the robot attacks immediately. Sometimes it hesitates. Sometimes it takes a small step that barely anyone notices. That tiny step may look insignificant, but it often decides who controls the next exchange. Most people never even notice it. The robot that recovers first usually controls what happens next. Getting hit wasn't the real test. Recovering before the next attack arrived was. But surviving one exchange wasn't what this competition was really measuring. The real experiment had only just begun. Why build a robot fight league at all? At this point, the fight no longer looks like entertainment. It looks like a giant engineering experiment. And that's exactly what it is. But here's what makes this league so valuable. No laboratory can recreate what happens inside this cage. Researchers can simulate collisions. They can create millions of virtual fights. They can train robots against computer-generated opponents for months. But one real fight can expose a weakness that millions of simulations never find. Reality doesn't follow the script. A robot slips. A punch lands from an unexpected angle. An opponent reacts differently than predicted. Suddenly, months of preparation collide with something no engineer planned for. And that's exactly the moment researchers are hoping to see. Not because the robot failed, because every unexpected failure teaches them something they couldn't have programmed. That's why this competition isn't really measuring who built the strongest robot. It's measuring which robots can keep learning after everything goes wrong. That's something no simulation can ever fully guarantee. Every mistake exposes another limitation. Every recovery proves another solution. That's why winning isn't always the most valuable outcome. Sometimes, it's the robot that struggled the most, that teaches engineers the most, because every fight pushes humanoid robots one step closer to operating outside controlled environments, where nothing ever happens exactly as planned. The robots weren't just fighting each other. They were exposing every weakness engineers still have to solve. But one question still remained. How much of what these robots learned inside this cage will survive outside it? Because sooner or later, they leave the cage.